All right, friends, as promised, in studio with us, the ever debonair, the scooter riding, the uber talented. What else did you want me to say about you, Jake?
That'll cover it.
Okay, Jake Joraanstad, co-owner and the man of all things awesome at Myriad Mobile. Jake, most people out in the listening world who aren't your mom maybe don't know your backstory. Where are you from? Born and raised. I know you were an NDSU grad, but where was home before that?
Yeah, I grew up in Rolla, North Dakota, about 10 miles from Canada.
Okay.
I went to Winnipeg probably more often than I went to Fargo.
Really?
Growing up, just because it's seemingly closer. I think it was a little bit closer at the time. And then went to North Dakota State University as a Bison for computer engineering. Did a terrible job as I went through school there and started the company during college.
And the company is Myriad Mobile. For folks that aren't aware of what it is, give us the skinny, the insider scoop.
Yeah. So what we do is we work with all kinds of businesses kind of all over the United States to help them develop, design, build mobile apps on Android phones, iPhones, iPads for use in either their business or maybe even to their customers that they're trying to use. So an example might be a real estate app we've built in the past, or a lot of things we're doing lately for agriculture and working in different businesses there. So,
how does a guy go from almost Canadian, small town North Dakota, to now running a multi-million-dollar company? And you're still in your 20s, Jake.
Yeah.
Fascinatingly cool.
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, it's a little bit messy to do that. I call it flirting. It's this idea you fail a lot, but as long as you learn from it and you don't completely lose it, it's progress.
Okay.
And we call that flirting, and we did a lot of that. For the
And
last
still doing
5
it?
years, 6 years, every day.
Jake, what made you stay in Fargo? Like, you had the choice. Fargo is not the tech center of North America.
No, definitely not.
Working with mobile apps and trying to cater to companies that would be willing to pay an expensive price, because technology isn't inexpensive. No matter how you do it, the creation of technology costs a lot and has a lot of infrastructure with it. What made you say that I want to build this company with dozens of team members and stay in Fargo?
Yeah, well, at the time when I got to, Fargo was just where I was when we started. And I always had this idea maybe we would do something else. And actually, when I was starting the company, I was also applying at John Deere here in Fargo, where they didn't give me an interview because my GPA was too low. I was applying at Microsoft. I didn't put my GPA on that resume, so I could get a job there. Or I had a chance anyway. So I got an interview, a couple interviews, didn't get the job. I applied at Google. They didn't give me an interview either. I wanted to go to Silicon Valley. That was my initial idea. But when I realized that Google didn't want to hire me, and I realized that I was having a hard time getting any job with my GPA as it was at NDSU, I kind of started more on that path of maybe I can build my own thing. And so that was sort of the steps I got there. And once we realized that Great Plains was in Fargo and had built this great thing, and then all these people and their kids have stayed around the area, a lot of them to build other technology companies. It started to make a lot of sense that, hey, there's a lot of talent here, a lot of engineers. I was getting all these guys from NDSU, Concordia, MSUM, from the area colleges coming to work with us. And so it kind of made sense that Fargo was the right place to do this. And then this organization called Emerging Prairie kind of got started along with Greg and Miguel and Andy and I, and that sort of said, let's put the tech people together for once in this town and see if they can do something cool together, and that sort of hooked me, and that was it. I hadn't considered going anywhere since.
Well, Jake, if people aren't aware of what you're doing, you're creating a new infrastructure for this community in terms of it being Fargo wasn't the Silicon Valley of the Upper Midwest, but I think it's becoming that.
I think so too. Yeah.
The things that you're doing and the forward thinking of Emerging Prairie and drone focus and all the things that you're doing to really bring technology to the core here means that I think that this community has a pretty profound tomorrow. Today is pretty kick butt. Yesterday was in the past. Today's pretty kick butt. But what do we expect from a company like Myriad Mobile tomorrow?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, when we started, we were definitely not one of the first. We were not the first startup in North Dakota, in Fargo, right? There's been hundreds and thousands in the past that have done awesome work, and they're all probably the big companies we look at today in North Dakota. But what did happen was we were like kind of one of the first millennial startup companies that was doing software in particular.
And not just like a 30-something millennial, like you were fresh out of college.
Yeah, we started. I was 21 when we started. I'm 27 right now, and that's 22 when we started, and that's the lifespan of the company so far. It's a little bit crazy. What's funny is the average age of the company moves with the founder, basically. So we're getting older every year and need to work on hiring younger people. But yeah, I think the future is just really exciting because there's 10 Myriad Mobiles in Fargo right now, or 20 of them that are doing similar things and growing fast, and some of them are raising money, and some of them are just high growth and kicking butt, and some of them are failing. And we need to see more of all those things to start to look a little bit more like the success of Silicon Valley. We don't need to look like them, but we can look like their success, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I had a speaker I was listening to last week, and he had said something that was profound to me. He said, with the people that you're trying to model yourself after, don't copy what they do, but study how they think.
Yes.
Jake, how do you think that's different than the average Joe?
I think as it relates to Silicon Valley, one thing that they get right that you can copy or you can think like they do, which is this idea of a high rate of failure is okay, and that failures are okay to talk about, and it's okay to support people who failed and they're going to try their next thing. There's a guy here in town that's tried 3 different businesses, 3 of them failed. Usually it's 3 strikes, you're out, but this guy went for the 4th one and now he's being successful.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's stuff where in the Midwest culture, it's kind of like you don't support failure, you don't talk about failure, but in Silicon Valley they do. And I think if we can keep embracing that, there's going to be a lot more people willing to take a chance and maybe build something really great.
Jake, I'm going to keep you around after the break. There's a couple more questions I want to ask, but folks, in the meantime, head to livefargomoorhead.com to find out what your home is worth. This is Real Estate Radio with Erik Hatch. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio. As always, I'm your host, Erik Hatch, and still in studio with us, we have Jake Joraanstad, owner of Myriad Mobile. Jake, we've talked about what's happening in Fargo for Myriad Mobile, why you failed, why you succeeded, how we're trying to have this place be a Silicon Valley-esque place that accepts failure and that sort of thing. Jake, what do you predict for the tech industry? Because Fargo's becoming more tech savvy by the day. Companies like Microsoft aren't going anywhere, and more companies are relying on technology. You're building what isn't a startup anymore. You have your stake in the ground for technology. What are you predicting for the impact of technology in our community in the upcoming years?
Well, the sort of agreed upon idea of what's happening in technology is this idea, and it's been happening for a few years now, is software is eating the world. This is a thing that Mark Andreessen, he's one of the greatest investors in Silicon Valley, has stated. They have a thesis on this, and what it means is software is changing, is disrupting every industry out there. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's literally not an industry that software is not going to disrupt in some way or another. Uber is a really obvious one where it's disrupting the traditional taxi model. Airbnb is completely disrupting hotels. Hotels are lobbying against Airbnb. They're trying to make them somewhat illegal in some states to be able to rent your home to other people through an app. But it's not really that software created the house, right? This house is there already, but software enabled people to do a transaction that couldn't be done before. And that's happening at every level. And to us, our focus is in agriculture. We see from the upper Midwest anyways, there's just a huge opportunity in agriculture to get on board and to embrace that change and that software that's coming to help improve basically how we create food in the world.
I love what you just said, and I get the privilege of giving community tours for incoming physicians at Sanford. And so every couple of weeks, I'm in my vehicle doing a couple-hour community tour. One of my favorite things is to go up to the technology park at NDSU and to talk about in the western part of the state how we're relying on fossil fuels and we're relying on things like oil. But here in the eastern part of the state, we're studying how crops are grown and how do we make things more sustainable for forever, and how are we taking things like wind and solar power and using those to fuel the world. And so I think software has a major piece in that, and the technology corner is pretty giant. Yeah,
and on top of that, I mean, we've got what Great Plains did was build one of the greatest accounting softwares of the 90s, right? In the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. And it's just incredible to watch. In North Dakota, like we were in the incubator when we started. So that was after we got out of the dorms. We went to the incubator and we're there for a couple years, and we got to see a lot of cool companies. I mean, Apario's doing great work. They've got like over 200 employees, I think, now.
Pretty giant.
Apario started in the incubator, and a whole bunch of other companies you probably know about have as well. There's just a lot of good value being created up in that research park area. There's stuff we don't know about, we can't talk about, whatever is going on up there. That's just incredible work. Plus, we've got this innovation around drones in North Dakota between Grand Forks and Fargo. A ton of innovation happening. We've got this idea of you can now fly with no line of sight with a drone, which means that they can do testing with drones without having to see them when they're flying, which is a big limitation up to this point. Now North Dakota is one of the only states in the whole country you can do that. It's a little scary, but at the same time, it's also going to help us push forward, right? Because they're using software now to know how safe the drone is, how it's doing, where it's at, all the vitals. That stuff is being done with software. So.
You said something profound in terms of how technology and software is integrating everything, and software is it's permeable into every business everywhere. And so right now, I'd assume there's some listeners who are saying, I feel behind the 8 ball in software. I want to tell you, a company like Myriad Mobile could be a great asset for you. And if they can't be the one, I know they'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, we know a lot of good players out there that we could work with if we're not the right fit.
So Jake, how can people get in contact with you, learn a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, it's kind of exciting. So myriadmobile.com, MYRIAD mobile.com. It's kind of weird. People just don't know that word, and it's definitely an English word. It's in the dictionary, but some people don't know it. So
I don't know most words in the dictionary.
Yeah, that's true. I probably don't.
I only read picture books.
So myriadmobile.com is a great spot to find out more about us. You can contact us. You can find my contacts information on there. But also, just so you guys know, I mean, this morning we are releasing a press release about a product we built for the agriculture market for elevator companies, grain elevators, mills, and ethanol plants. It's called Bushel, and it's launching this morning. Wow. And so you'll hear a little bit more about that, but you can check it out at bushel.ag.
Oh, man.
It's launching this week anyway. So,
Jake, I love the gifts that you give this community, and I love that you chose to stay here. Thank goodness nobody else hired you, so we get to keep you around.
Yeah.
All right, folks, stick around. I have some great things coming up in our final segment. This is Real Estate Radio with Erik Hatch.